Every garden is a reflection of those who make it. And today I am meeting a gardener who is cultivating her own little piece of paradise. Mara Rapani is living the dream, her own dream of growing, cooking, teaching and sharing life over food.
We're on 15 acres on Jajawarong country and on volcanic soil, and we started this garden 7 years ago, my partner and I, and it's called orto, which is the Italian word for kitchen garden. That's my heritage is Italian, Italy, Le Marche, the region. So I preserve a lot of tomatoes. I do a year's worth of tomatoes. But then I also dehydrate a lot of fruits. So strawberries is one of my key fruits. I'll have jars of dehydrated strawberries, nashi pears. I forage apples and plums. It's wonderful to be able to tap into that larder and make the most of what I've grown in summer.
Oh, Mara, this is such a beautiful room, north-facing.
Yes, it's our greenhouse. And we've built it so that it can provide passive heat for our house.
Amazing, and such a great environment for growing different plants and drying clothes, of course.
Yes.
But I can see you've got heaps of seed raising here and even citrus.
Yes, the citrus has grown and produced fruit within a year and a half, while the citrus on the outside is only just produced fruit after 5 or 6 years because it doesn't have that protection. I can propagate seedlings for the kitchen garden. The top racks are used for drying fruit. And it's a space to come into when it is very cold to warm up your bones. Being able to dehydrate fruit has been invaluable and often much easier than preserving fruit because it's essentially a matter of either cutting, slicing very thinly in the case of lemons. With berries, it's more just spreading the fruit so it's not touching each other. That's really important. So I've got currants in here and boysenberries. And then there's other things that I can dry as well. Like I dry calendulas, which are just air dried on racks.
It's amazing how much colour they retain even when they're dried.
They look beautiful. So I use these for cakes and for salads. And I've got cornflowers here as well, which dry very simply on wicking baskets, and rose petals, which are fragrant and sweet.
And what would you use something like this for?
At this time of year, I'm going to use it to make panettone, which is a traditional Christmas bread. Panettone literally means a large bread. So we're going to make panettone. We're going to use my eggs. I'd like you to break 5 and use the yolk to put in here. I'm going to break another 5 and use the whole egg and place in here. We'll start with that, and then we'll add some leaven, some milk, some salt, and then let it rest for a while.
So 10 eggs, this is a great way to use up that glut of spring eggs.
Yes, and an opportunity to store them in something that's really rich and keeps for a really long time. So now let's put some leaven in, which is the starter, made with milk and flour, which is fermented. So we'll put about 400 grams in here. So the recipe is 1,000 grams of flour, and 40% of the recipe will be this leaven. We'll add some milk next, 100 mils, and then 20 grams of salt. So I'm going to do 2 pinches. Let me take that off now. Put this in. So I'm going to add 1 kilo of flour. This is a high gluten flour, so it's got a lot of protein, and it just makes it easier to make the panettone rise. So I'll put this on and quick it, and then dough hook, ready, set, go. After adding all the initial ingredients, I rest it for between half an hour and an hour, and then come back to it and start adding butter. And I just want to add a little bit at a time on the side. So that's pretty much all of it. The dough is looking really shiny and beautiful, and the butter has incorporated really well. So now we can add the fruits. It's about 500 grams of citrus peel and currants, and then the alcohol that was soaked in.
So what have you soaked that in?
Cointreau and marsala.
Right.
A little bit of vanilla, and a little bit of almond essence.
Okay.
Overnight, so that the fruit, you want the fruit to be really moist, so it's not taking water away from the dough. So we'll let that mix for about 5 minutes. I've got a bowl of water because it stops my hand from sticking to the dough, so I just wet it, but I don't want to incorporate any more moisture in. Then I grab from underneath, stretch out, wet it again, grab from underneath, stretch out, fold it in, and keep doing that in a circle until the dough doesn't want to stretch anymore, and then I rest it. Do you want to have a go at this stage?
I'm up for that.
So,
all right, so
one hand, grab it and then just shake it out a little bit. It just helps to stretch. Yes, that's it.
God, you need a bit of strength in that arm, don't you?
Yes, and it's a good exercise. This dough needs a lot of kneading, so at the moment I'll get us to do it 5 or 6 more times. So I'm really happy with that. Now we're going to let it sit for 24 hours. I've got one I've already made, so we can use that.
Okay.
And flip it, and then stretch it out a little bit, and bring it in, and bring it in.
So you're really tucking it in to form a fairly solid ball, as opposed to just pouring it in.
Yes. Scoop it up and in, tuck it there, and we're going to leave that to proof until it's at the very top, and then it will go in the oven. So this one is now perfectly risen. It's done 12 hours of proofing, and the final fermentation, it's ready to go in.
Finally. This bakes for 10 minutes at the back of Mara's pizza oven, where it's hot, about 250 degrees, and then moves to the front where it's cooler for another 10 minutes. You can do the same thing in a conventional oven, and the details are on our website.
So the moment this comes out of the oven, I coat it in alcohol again. That's really important actually, because it helps to keep the panettone fresh for longer and it keeps the moisture in. So coat it with alcohol, a little bit of butter, and now let's top it off.
So it's totally cool?
Yeah, now it's cool down. And so now I'm going to ice it a little bit and decorate it with some edible flowers from my garden. So by using the flowers, it's a little bit of Australia meets Italy in this panettone, because the flowers were growing on this property on Jajawarang land, and the panettone comes from my culture.
It looks delicious, and I reckon it's going to taste that way too. Mara, I don't reckon there's a better manifestation at this time of the year of a bit of time in a summer garden, beautiful dried fruit, and this gorgeous dessert. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Millie. Thank you so much too. Buon appetito.
Oh.